was here first.
Sounds good. Thanks, Casey. My name is Patrick Jamar. Dr. Jamar, you can call me Patrick, I don't care. I have been a visiting lecturing professor at Texas A&M University for the past, well, year. I was a postdoc before that. And so I guess, uh, yeah, that's me. I was in the Department of Agriculture. There's a whole bunch of acronyms and names in that department. Department of Agricultural Leadership, Education, and Communications. But within that department, I taught classes in agricultural journalism and communication. So that's my big spiel there. Why I'm interested in this role? Well, I've always been interested in IECA. It's my favorite conference. I've been to ICA, NCA, IAMCR, JEMCA, JEMC, if I can talk. I've been to all of them, and IECA is my favorite. It's such a small group of individuals that just has, all these same interests, and we're actually addressing all these really important issues. And I think it's just a really valuable and great conference. And I've been a part of, IECA for a number of years. I think since 2021, that was my first one. And I presented at that one. And I've loved it ever since. And yeah, I would just love the opportunity. I'm having like throat problems, to be a part of this organization at a more official capacity. And I definitely have the background to back that up as well. So, yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Casey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I think we'll go to Jessica.
All right, thanks. It's really nice to meet those of you who I haven't met before. So I'm a research faculty at Virginia Tech, where I've been working since 2022. I'm also the co-PI of an NSF project called the Greenland Hazards Project, which is looking at, it's an interdisciplinary group of researchers working on mostly earth science research in Greenland, looking at natural hazards that are occurring there. And my role is the social scientist on the project, where I'm studying communication and decision making between the researchers, the earth science researchers, and communities in Greenland. So as far as my motivations go for wanting this role, IECA has been my primary professional organization for a number of years. I first really became aware of it back in 2013 when I was in the NCA doctoral honors seminar in Maine, which was such a great experience. And I've just really appreciated, I think, like Patrick was saying, the kind of the intimate feel of this organization and the conferences that I've had the chance to participate in. And so it's been a really meaningful organization for me, both for my work and for networking. And I'm at a point in my career where I have a little bit more time to commit to service. And so I feel like this is an organization where I'd like to contribute that time.
Awesome. And Emily, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for inviting us here, and Jessica and Patrick, it's great to meet you and hear more about your work as well. So I am currently an associate professor of environmental communication at the University of Rhode Island. I've been here for about 6-ish years at this point. My background is in environmental policy, public opinion, and strategic communication on climate change mostly, but broadening to other environmental issues at this point. And I teach courses on science and environmental communication, as well as environmental media. I am so I've been a member of IECA since 2015. That was the first conference I went to. I think it was in Boulder, and have been coming to the conferences, to the COSIs, fairly religiously since then. Have developed a good network within IECA and among both practitioners and scholars, which is one of the things I really, really love about this organization, is its commitment to not just being an academic organization, but broadening and thinking about environmental communication, across disciplinary lines, but also inside and outside of academia. And so I've really appreciated that, and I think that the role of treasurer can actually build on that a lot. I think that there's some opportunities, especially, so many academic institutions right now are feeling the crunch financially, and so I think that there's a lot of opportunity to build on some of the uniqueness of our organization in how we do cross these professional boundaries and incorporate and build and grow our membership, both internationally, but also among practitioners as well. And I think that that can contribute to the financial growth of our organization. So I've always loved that about IECA, and kind of thinking about this particular position. I see some growth potential there, and ability to really build on this wonderful foundation that Steve has created. So yeah, again, just circling back to me and my motivations, really like this organization. I've been fairly committed to it. Just getting to a point in my career where I'm able to look outwards a little bit more and think about broader involvement, have a bit more time and energy to devote to that. And I'd really like to channel some of that time and effort to helping the IECA grow.
Excellent. Thank you all. What I'd like to do here is rather than have the same person have to answer first every time, we'll just kind of rotate in that order. So I think the next question will go Jessica, Emily, Patrick, and then the question after that will go Emily, Patrick, Jessica, just to make sure that we have equal time to kind of think through your responses. So the next question is about the position itself, and a few of you have nodded to the role of treasurer. Treasurer does a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, one of the biggest skills we're looking for is organization and some basic like financial accounting principles. So my question for all of you is, can you tell us a little bit about your organizational skills and your familiarity with finances and accounting? Jessica?
Sure. So before I went back to graduate school for my master's and my PhD, I was working in nonprofit administration for about a decade, and had been mostly involved in small scale budgets, but accounting reports, and really tasked with organizing that information, those materials, in ways that not only would allow me to understand, but also other people who are looking at that information to understand it as well, and also to keep track of the important kind of deadlines and timelines that come along with accounting and budgets, in terms of accountability to not just the IRS, but counties, federal entities, I guess. And then since 2020, I've been involved in mostly grant funded research. And so through that experience as well, I've been mostly doing proposal writing. Our Greenland Hazards Project is a $3 million NSF grant that we were awarded. It's a 5-year grant. And so that's given me a lot of experience in academic research and budgets and development, in terms of learning about the processes with report writing, developing budgets for personnel, for materials, for equipment, things that again need kind of formation at the beginning, but then also a lot of accountability along the way in terms of writing reports and so on. And so since I've started in the grant funded research, I've been awarded grants at NSF, NASA, and then also like seed funding. So I've had some experience managing budgets in both small and larger scale organizational roles. But yeah, so I think I'll stop there. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment.
All right. Emily.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of my skills and experience that I have to bring to this position, I am a highly organized and reliable person. I think that's probably one of my key personal and professional traits and skills, and so I think that would bring a lot of value to the role and to the organization. I also have quite a bit of external externally funded grant experience, similar to as Jessica was just describing. So I am a PI or a co-PI or a co-investigator on currently maybe 4 or 5 large multi-million dollar grants, federally funded grants. So my pieces of that are smaller, but it does involve a lot of the creation of budgets, the management of budgets as the funds come in, tracking expenses, as well as money that's coming in. I do handle a lot of the hiring and management of students and research associates, so have some good experience with tracking that, tracking salaries, and making sure that funds are being paid out as they need to be and as they go. With that also comes a lot of experience with financial reporting. So I do all of these grants require at least annual financial reporting back to the funders. So I've got a good amount of experience with that component as well. Um, Less experience with the actual filing of taxes for an organization, but it would definitely be open to learning that process. I will also say, just outside of the finances, because I know this is a big and growing organization. It's gone through a lot of evolution over the past 20-ish years. Uh, I do have, I think, very strong interpersonal skills as well, and a lot of experience working across disciplinary boundaries, but also internationally, both on research projects, as well as in other various forms. And so I think that I would bring that skill to this position to be able to work well with other board members and other parts of the organization that are both in the US, as well as outside of the US.
Excellent. And Patrick.
Great, thank you. So in terms of, I guess, credentials, I have a bachelor's of business administration degree. And so I've taken all the accounting classes, I've taken all the finance classes. It was a while ago, but I have that experience. I've also worked for a lot of nonprofit and for-profit organizations, doing budgets, doing all those different things. They were marketing roles, but I've, had to report all of my finances, all of my expenses, revenue reports, things like that, to the VP of marketing, and sometimes actually report them to the actual, all the heads of the departments, the board. So I have experience with that. I also have academic experience as well. I haven't worked on as many grants as other people in this group, but I have worked on a few, and I have done budgets for grants as well. One multi-million-dollar grant for USDA with the Texas Water Resource Institute. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to see if Steve or Dar have questions before we move on. So my third question has to do with balancing our budget in the association. That is, a mix of reducing costs where possible, but I think more importantly for a growing organization, boosting revenue. So one thing that our treasurer will do after kind of training with Steve and getting a sense for the position is finding new and creative ways to raise funds, boost revenue for an international organization like this one. We know that you don't know everything about the organization just yet, but when you think about stepping into the treasurer role for the IECA, what are some ways that you would want to explore boosting revenue or fundraising for the organization? We're going to start with Emily and then Patrick and then Jessica. So Emily?
Yeah, thank you. Um, One thing I didn't mention in my response to the first question is that I've also been serving for the past 2 years on the outreach committee of the IECA. And so I'm going to build on that a little bit in my answer here, because one of the things that we've been focusing on in the outreach committee is how do we grow the organization and the membership, both internationally, so particularly in areas in the global south where we have not historically had as much representation, but also outside of just strictly academics and academia and research. And so I bring that in because I do see that being a real pathway of opportunity for the ICA, but also financially. So for membership, but also financially. So I alluded earlier to, I think a lot of the traditional ways that we have raised funds and had sponsorships for conferences and things like that has been through universities. That's going to be harder, I think, in the next few years, as a lot of universities are feeling very crunched financially, particularly in the United States. So I think we're going to need to look at more international institutions to maybe take a bigger role, both practically and financially in the organization. And that could look like maybe a bigger focus on events and conferences or mini conferences or things like that outside of the United States that could help draw in interest both from members as well as institutional support from other organizations. And then the other thing, as I mentioned, that excites me about IECA is how welcome we are to practitioners as members and as active participants in the organization. And practitioners oftentimes are associated with organizations or companies, right? And not academic institutions. And I think that that's another pathway that we should pursue to grow our finances, and maybe think about, partner with other parts of our organization like outreach, development, things like that, that are committees such as those that could help get more of those non-academic institutions involved.
Great. Patrick.
Thank you. So a lot of the things Emily was saying, I was also brewing in my head, which is great. But I guess I could add to that by saying, again, starting by saying, we need to reach into deep-pocketed individuals, that be organizations from outside the US, universities outside the US, like Emily mentioned. But building off of that too, we could do social media campaigns, things like that. Things that IECA maybe doesn't do as often, try to branch out into those different areas, right? To try and collect additional monies that we'll need to keep COSI and IECA going. Different things like that. Maybe we could change how often we do COSI, maybe every year rather than every 2 years, but I don't know. I know you probably have your reasons for why you do it every 2 years, but just something to think about. But yeah, different things like that could really help. Yeah, we could even partner with other brands. Maybe that could help too, to bring in additional income as well. So all those different things.
Excellent. And Jessica.
Yeah, I think there are a number of really exciting prospects. I think as Emily and Patrick have both mentioned, in the U.S. the kind of funding landscape is tricky right now, but through the work that I've been doing, especially with in earth science and science communication as well, I've been meeting a number of scientists who are interested in communication and interested in understanding environmental communication and what that means for this organization, but also just in terms of its research and practice. And so I think there is a large population in the sciences that would be a really interesting a group to consider partnering with. So thinking about professional organizations, thinking about academic organizations, and also with the kind of junior researchers and graduate students in those areas as well. So both in communication, but also I think it's a group that has a um, from my experience and teaching and working on these projects, the students and are taking more of an interest in the sciences in both the environment, climate change, but also these social impacts that I think that IECA really gets to in the way that we do our work and the way that the organization is focused. So I think there's a really exciting opportunity to partner with some different science organizations and departments, and also just to kind of spread um, the name of IUCA in ways that can garner attention and interest. And then I would also say that, you know, in my international networks, especially through our Greenland project, again, there's yes, aspects of partnerships and ways to reach out and understand what ways that the organization could possibly partner, but also again expand its reach and its you know, publicity and attention to what we're doing.
All right, excellent. Like I said, I wanted to see if either Dara or Steve had questions that they wanted to ask. Steve in particular has served as our treasurer for some time. So Dara, Steve, do either of you have questions for our candidates?
Hey, Casey, those were good questions. Really good questions. So yeah, let me try one here. And Casey can figure out who got the batting order here in terms of who's going to go first here. But here it's like hypothetical. I'm just going to pick January 1st. That may be the day that new treasurer takes the role. May not be, but let's just say for sake of arguments, January 1st, 2026. You are the new treasurer of the organization. And considering yourself to be both sort of a chief financial officer in some ways and also a chief development officer, you know, looking at, you know, maintaining an accountability of the budget, but also looking outward. So thinking of the chief financial officer, chief development officer of this nonprofit organization, academic organization. What's one thing as you step into that first day in your role that you're super excited about? And then one thing that you're like anxious about? Just kind of projecting out, because one of you is going to be in all likelihood, it's going to be the treasurer. So one thing that excites you, one thing that you're like nervous or anxious about. So Casey,
I think we'll go with our initial order here. So I think we'll go Patrick, Jessica, Emily again on that one. Patrick.
Thank you. Tough question. So I think what I'm excited most for is to just I don't know, experience a role that's, you know, bigger in ICA, I guess, and just to get acquainted with it. I mean, this is my bread and butter. I love, you know, everything dealing with business. All my degrees are in some form of business. And so I get to flex those business muscles, so to speak, while also, you know, doing things with environmental communication and risk communication, which is part of my research agenda. So it's just a all-encompassing thing, and I guess that's exciting for me. The biggest challenge is probably just because it's a big role, and I want to make sure that everything that I'm doing is done transparently, especially when people ask for requests for money, right? Because they have to ask requests to get money from my ECA. And I guess the way in which I report that, I just be like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I reporting to the right person? Does everyone know that this money is going to this person? So I guess that's kind of my biggest scared, you know, concern thing.
Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I think the most exciting aspect of this is working with a great group of people to begin to understand the organization in a different way that I haven't necessarily been involved in before. So getting to understand the workings of the organization and getting to be a part of growing and strengthening this group that means a lot to me. So I think, first off, I'd be really just interested in the conversations and the excitement of moving into the next years of this position would be running. And then as far as anxiety goes, I think it's a lot of information to learn, and so I think just kind of making sure that I can tactfully you know understand all that is necessary for this role in a way that is going to help the organization continue the work smoothly once Steve steps down. And so kind of that that idea of transitioning in a smooth way and making sure that happens, and kind of having some of that weight can be good pressure, but it's certainly also some anxiety provoking as well.
All right. And Emily, how about you?
Yeah, I'll echo what Patrick and Jessica said. I think feel similarly. I will say, I think what excites me the most kind of on day one is I see myself, one of my personality traits is I'm an optimizer and kind of like a tinkerer with, logistics and everything. And I've been part of IECA for so long, but, from a distance, kind of, looking on to the organization from down below. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to kind of get under the hood and see, what the organizational situation is, where there are opportunities to grow, kind of where the pinch points are, just get a better understanding of, the inner workings of the organization and of the finances in particular. I think the biggest anxiety points. So I'll say that I just took on a service role, graduate program director here in our department, and I took it over because the previous person who was in the role left the university, and she left somewhat abruptly, and there was very little transition. And so I'm in a spot right now this semester where I'm just kind of trying to figure out everything as I go without much guidance. And I think that would be maybe a anxiety similar to how Jessica framed it, of, really, and I'm sure that Steve, you will do a great job with transition with whoever takes this role. But I think there's so many moving parts, especially with a role like this that has these reporting requirements and filing the taxes, and you're playing around with real stuff here, real important money. And so just making sure that I would be able to know the answers to all of the questions that arise is probably the anxiety point on day one.
All right. Thank you all. Those are great responses, and thanks for leaning into the humility. I do want to make sure we have time for each of you to ask any questions you have of us. But I wanted to see, Dara, did you have a quick question before we do that?
I guess maybe I'll just throw out the question, and if you could keep it short, because I know I do want to make sure you guys have time for questions at the end. What's one thing that IECA is not doing that if we had unlimited funds, we should be doing?
I like that question. So we'll go Jessica, Emily, Patrick. What is one thing that we're not currently doing, but if money were no object, we really ought to? Jessica, and then Emily, and then Patrick.
I I think that more events would be really terrific. I think the past couple of years there's been efforts to create more opportunities for people for members to come together and learn about each other and network, and I find the conferences so wonderful, such wonderful spaces for doing that kind of work. I think any opportunity that we can all come together, either as a full group or as kind of subgroups to talk and really think through solutions to our research, but also to the world of practice, would be really exciting. So I would love to see just more more chances to sponsor that kind of activity.
Emily.
Yeah, I'll briefly, my response is gonna be fairly similar. I think, and Patrick alluded to it as well, the off years are a real area of opportunity for more engagement for for members. And so I think if we had unlimited funds, I'd love to see smaller regional conferences in the off years, or smaller regional gatherings maybe tacked on to existing conferences. Something like that to keep the momentum going in the off years, and also be able to be more accessible for people no matter where they are in the world, coming to, going to Tasmania from the New England is quite a feat, and coming up to is Salt Lake is the next one. Salt Lake from South Africa is a real feat. So if there's opportunities to have smaller, more local engagement in the off years for members, I think that's what I would prioritize.
And Patrick.
Great responses. I was thinking some of those things as well, both Emily and Jessica. I think what I would do is, again, maybe make COSI, every year, right? More COSI, more fun, right? If we had unlimited money, right? Because I have a feeling money is the reason why we do it every other year, plus lack of people who actually, have time to create COSI, right? And so I think with unlimited funds, we could just hire a bunch of people to help us. We could do COSI every year, all these types of things. And, we could also do more outreach for, at-risk communities and people who really should be a part of our organization, but just can't, because of financial constraints and things like that. Maybe in the form of grants, things of that nature, if we had unlimited money. But yeah.
All right. We've got about 8 minutes left here before I know some of us need to go teach or do other things. So we do want to hear if any of the three of you have questions for us. We have our current treasurer and chair on hand. Do you have any questions for us about the position or the selection process or the association at large?
Oh, you can go, Emily.
Oh, okay. Just briefly, because I think we've all brought this up a little bit, but the timeline is a little bit unclear, as is kind of the transition process. And Steve, I guess I'd love your thoughts on the role, how you would like the transition to go, what role you will be playing and for how long, and will you still be available for questions once we transition?
Yeah, real quickly here. I took on a second term, and sort of before we started this process, but the end date of that was going to be June of 26. That's still kind of a backstop in a way. We try to make it a little bit flexible, because depending on the availability of the candidate, we can kind of play with that a little bit. I mean, I think ideally January 1st would be great. But there's going to be, in any case, there's going to be a transition period, because two important events that happen. We get develop and approve a 2026 budget. That's going to happen at the December board meeting. I think the new treasurer could kind of look in on that process, and then filing taxes for 2025. Actually, filing taxes is the easiest part of this job, by the way. And I don't file my taxes for my own family, so that's going to happen in the spring of 26. Also, COSI 27 planning is starting to ramp up here, so I think this incoming treasurer is going to get involved with that. The date at which they become the financially responsible, like fiscal agent of the organization, that's somewhat negotiable. Latest would be June of 26, but as early as January 26, depending on what the person's availability is. I'm certainly going to be available during that transition and afterwards for questions. So that's sort of my take on that.
Good question. Patrick, was it the same question or a different one?
Different question, but that was one question I was thinking about, Emily. So, so I noticed in the bylaws that there are certain committees, and then on the website, there's a committee. Is there a certain committee that the treasurer has to be the chair of, or is that all just if you want to be chair, you can just say, I want to be chair?
So, handbook now for committees that is not published on the website yet, but it's getting board approval to be finalized. That's a question that we've been, talking about as an executive committee, because it's not, I don't think it's very clear at the moment. And so what we've come up with and how we're moving forward is that basically each member of the board needs to serve in some capacity on the chair, as a chair of a board committee. And then those of us who are on the executive committee, we tend to chair a little bit more, right? So we chair several committees, or chair and participate in several committees. So for example, sometimes that it means taking on additional committee responsibilities as we get closer to COSI, or as we're negotiating with COSI. So for example, Steve is going to take the lead on an MOU committee to develop the MOU between Utah and the IECA. Utah is being the host for the next COSI, and so we need some kind of, just like operating procedures and how we're going to make decisions and things like that. So Steve is going to step up and be the chair of that committee, but he also has led for a long time the development committee for the last year or so as the chair of that. And then in the past COSI 2025, he wore a bunch of hats. So that's kind of how Steve has done it. I, for example, chair the executive board, but I'm also leading with Valentina's going to help me co-chair the new membership committee that's coming online. And then I step in to fill gaps as needed. For example, we're rolling with a new awards committee chair. And so I'm sort of helping get that committee till the new awards chair are. But in general, I would say the treasurer will chair at least one. It makes sense to do the development or the research committee just because of what's involved in that. But certainly stepping up into other roles as they become appropriate is kind of the way that we on the executive board roll. If you ever get to the point where you're like, this is too much and I've done too much, we're a pretty cool group. And I feel like we all help each other and step in where we need to. And so yeah, so sometimes I'll reach out and be like, I need help with this, and someone will step up. And so I would say that if 2 to 3 is probably a good number, especially if you're chairing them, to plan for, but then you can, we can always support you as needed. Does that? And I will also say the one other thing about that I want to say is that it doesn't mean that you're meeting every week. Like the development committee, Steve, once a month? Maybe?
We met quarterly for the most part. Depends on how actively
Yeah.
we're planning a project or something. Just
Exactly.
the
So
board,
it's not yeah.
the membership approved the ability for the board to expand up to 15 members. So there's a play. We haven't done it yet, but there's an opportunity to expand the board in that respect. So I think that can be a positive thing going forward. And also, you have to remember before 2022 that we had the staff did a lot of stuff. It's good stuff, but I think the board members have taken on a little bit more of a role over the past 2 or 3 or 4 years for a variety of reasons. It also makes for exciting opportunities for leadership in the board and on those committees. And I think you're already seeing that with our fantastic chair stepping in and vice chair, of course, with his fantastic questions.
We're getting toward the end of our time here. Jessica, I wanted to see, did you have any pressing questions that you would like answered today?
I was just thinking, since we have both Steve and Valentina, if you have, I know you work together closely, and so I was thinking if you could offer advice. We talked about our anxieties, we talked about moving into that position. So for whoever takes this role, if you could give one moment of advice about the role, what would it be?
It's up. You got it, Valentina.
I think I work very closely with Steve for many reasons, not only if Steve needs information, but also sometimes decision making. And I know sometimes all the back end stuff going on with the type of members we're getting or things like this. So my only petition for the next treasurer is to keep the lines open. Steve and I would meet or email almost weekly, because that keeps us on pace of things. And so we don't do like Zoom meetings, but at least emails and a close communication and open. And I think I think I'm a reliable worker. If you need something, I will work very fast to get it as soon as possible for you. So I'm here to help. That's the only thing I would say.
And the treasurer is part of a team. The executive committee meets almost every month, maybe 10 times a year or whatever. We plan board meetings, but we're also bouncing ideas off of each other in terms of priorities, questions, how to maximize the value of the board members, that kind of thing. So we don't want any leader to feel like they're working in isolation. And I think that's a great comfort. And I think the board keeps getting stronger. So
I'll echo that. In my experience, I'm one of the newest members of the board, having started just this past summer. And I think those of you who are familiar with the association know that it's a tight-knit group of collaborative people, and that culture very much extends to the board. With that, I can see that we're just at 10:46 Eastern time, so I do want to wrap up. I want to thank you all again for your time, for your eagerness, for your willingness to serve, for the detail that you provided today. You're going to make the decision very, very difficult, I think, for our election board here. What's going to happen next? Well, we will take the video from today. We will circulate it to our board members. We do have a board meeting next week. If we have a quorum at that meeting, we may be able to hold the election. If we are not able to hold the election, we're looking at early October. We'll also be, directing people to your online statements that you've already provided to Valentina. In the meantime, if you do have additional questions or concerns for us, please do let us know. But as I think Steve said earlier in this conversation, realistically, one of you will be the treasurer here in the coming months, and we're going to really look forward to working with that person and maybe all of you in some capacity here in the coming years. With that, honoring your time, I think we can wrap up. Thank you, everyone, again, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so
you.
much. Nice talking with you.
Nice
Same
talking with you.
here.